a big ass phone.
I have short arms, so I can never do it.
Oh, damn, yo, this camera's amazing.
It's Samsung, right? What?
Hey everyone. Sorry. No, you're okay. I'm going to get everyone's attention. I know we have so much to talk about after all those wonderful workshops, but I'm going to ask everyone please to take your seats. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm going to ask that everyone take your seats, please. We're going to get started with our keynote speaker, and then we can get to food after that. I know that we've had really great workshops and lots to talk about. We're going to have time to mingle, I promise. But I want to make sure that we hear from our keynote speaker. So 2018 has been, as I mentioned before, a pretty busy year for all of us. And we've been working really hard to make sure that New Jersey is truly a welcoming state for all, including immigrants, including all of us. And so that really has required us to ask our state leadership to step up and stand by our communities. We have a governor who's pledged his support. And in his administration, we've had a lot of folks who have also expressed their support. And one of the big successes we had this year was the support of our Attorney General Grewal, and his team, who worked tirelessly most of the year on the Immigrant Trust Directive that was announced a couple weeks ago. So it was really great to hear that from his office, and also to know that a lot of us were at the table to give input and highlight and lift up the voices of our communities to make sure that what our communities are seeing on the ground is being heard by the leaders of our state. So we are so very, very proud to have Attorney General Grewal with us today. I'm going to have him come up and speak to us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction, Joanna. I want to thank Joanna and the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice for inviting me. I want to thank all of you for being here and participating in today's seminar. It is so wonderful to see now familiar faces out there. A number of us have worked together over the last 10 months, and I'm excited by what we accomplished. I thought today I would start by speaking to you about journeys. And I want to start with my own journey, because I think in many ways my journey to becoming New Jersey's 61st Attorney General is an improbable one. But it is also one that is uniquely American. You see, nearly 5 decades ago, my parents crossed oceans to come to this country. They came in search of a better life for themselves and their family. And they took an incredible leap of faith, leaving everyone and everything they knew. And like so many others before them who took that same leap, they came in pursuit of the American dream, that notion that no matter where you come from, what you believe, what you look like, or who you love, that if you work hard, you can achieve success in this country. And my parents worked hard, and they raised a family, and they achieved that dream. And as the grateful beneficiary of that dream, I'm motivated each and every day to stand up for the values that have made this country the destination that it has been for so many, and to ensure that other immigrant families can achieve their own version of the American dream, and to guarantee that America remains a land of promise and success for all. But lately, it seems like the folks in Washington are devising new plans each and every day to make our country less and less welcoming for immigrants, to do everything they can to ensure that the promise of the American dream is no longer available, even to those escaping suffering and abuse. Today, we have a president that works tirelessly to dehumanize immigrants by referring to them as thugs, by claiming that they want to, quote, infest our country, by separating families and putting children in cages, by warning of invading caravans, and by pursuing half-baked immigration policies that do nothing to make us safer and only serve to whip up support for the president's nationalist agenda. The result is that the federal government has cultivated a culture of fear, a fear that drives some of our most vulnerable residents deeper into the shadows. These residents fear now that a traffic stop will land them in a detention center. And so they avoid the day-to-day tasks that you and I take for granted. They fear that a call to the police will end in their deportation, so they don't say anything when they're the victims of violence or fraud. They fear that an ICE officer will be waiting for them outside of a courthouse, so they refuse to testify at trial. Crimes go unreported. Criminals remain on the street, and justice goes unserved. Now, part of the problem is that some of our most vulnerable residents don't understand the difference between an ICE officer and a local police officer. They simply fear anyone with a badge. And that makes it harder for law enforcement across our state to protect all of our communities. And that affects everyone's public safety. So at the New Jersey Attorney General's office, we did something about this. Just last month, we issued a new law enforcement directive to draw a clear and bright line between New Jersey's law enforcement officers on the one hand and federal civil immigration authorities on the other. This directive applies to all 36,000 law enforcement officers in New Jersey, everyone from state troopers to local beat cops to correctional officers. And our approach is simple. We're limiting the voluntary assistance that New Jersey's law enforcement officers provide to federal civil immigration authorities. And in doing so, we're telling our state law enforcement agencies to focus their resources on their core priorities, such as solving crimes and protecting the public, rather than advancing Washington's immigration agenda. We want to create an environment where all of our residents feel safe around law enforcement officers. Because here in New Jersey, you can be pro-immigrant and you can be pro-law enforcement at the same time. Now, I had the pleasure of announcing this directive at Liberty State Park, standing in the shadow of Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. But I am particularly proud of who joined me that day and has partnered with us on this journey. At the announcement, I was flanked by New Jersey's top law enforcement officers, including the police chiefs from our 5 major cities. But also present were immigration advocates and community stakeholders, including some of the people in this room today. We spent months together working on this directive, consulting with both law enforcement and community members on the effort. And while not everyone got what they wanted, I think we were able to find common ground. And we proved to Washington in the process that if you try to drive a wedge between law enforcement and our immigrant communities in New Jersey, you will fail. Because here in New Jersey, we all share a common goal of reducing crime and protecting our residents. And we will push back against anyone who tries to mischaracterize our efforts. And we will not change course in response to political threats. And unlike ICE, we will not threaten people with arrests to score cheap political points. That's the model we're building here in New Jersey. And the folks in Washington could stand to learn a thing or two from what we're doing in the Garden State. But the Immigrant Trust Directive is just one step we've taken to stand up for our immigrant brothers and sisters. Beyond our work with law enforcement, we're using our policymaking and litigation tools. We're using those tools to do everything we can to advocate for the humanity of our friends and neighbors. We don't do this because it's easy, and we certainly don't do it because it's popular. We do it because as attorneys general, we've all taken oaths to protect our states. And these decisions directly affect our residents. And here's just an example of some of the things we've done over the last 11 months. We've challenged the president's multiple Muslim bans. We've fought plans to separate families. We're fighting for the asylum rights of those fleeing war and persecution in their home countries. We took the administration to trial over its attempt to add a question to the census, a question that serves no other purpose than to drive our immigrant communities further into the shadows. We pushed back against efforts to cancel TPS, and we even led the fight to save the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, better known as DACA. You see, when the state of Texas tried to strip protections from Dreamers and sought an immediate end to that program, we went down to federal court in Texas and we stopped them. I saw this firsthand. I went down to Texas with our team for that argument, to show support for our Dreamers. Texas and the federal government got up there in that case and focused their time on legal technicalities like standing and jurisdiction. But attorneys from my office, including Rachel Apter, who is here, and our new Director of Civil Rights, stood up. And she got up there and she told the story of the human aspects of that case. Rachel talked about the lives that would be affected. She talked about the men and women, boys and girls who came to this country as children and know of no other home. She talked about New Jersey's Dreamers as people, not as problems. And it worked. We convinced that judge that Texas had no right to terminate the program immediately. And as a result, our nation's nearly 800,000 Dreamers, including nearly 17,000 that call New Jersey home, can, for the moment at least, continue to live their lives without the fear of deportation. Now, that litigation is far from over. But as far as I'm concerned, every extra day that we can get for our Dreamers is well worth it. And even if we don't win every battle, we know that we're on the right side of history and that we're fighting for the values that define us all as Americans. And here's where all of you come in. We can only reclaim this moment if we work together. I'm looking at a room full of advocates, of faith leaders, of policymakers, and community organizers. And I'm feeling so incredibly encouraged by what I see in this room today, because each of you has a role to play. You are the ones who will help us rebuild trust between law enforcement and our immigrant communities by sharing with the communities that you represent that they can count on New Jersey's law enforcement officers, and that being a witness to a crime won't mean you'll be deported. And you're also the ones that can help us advocate for the American values that we all hold dear, by encouraging communities you represent to come forward with their stories, the stories that my office has been telling in our briefs and in our arguments, to demonstrate what the administration's new rules actually mean for Dreamers and asylum seekers, and the stories that will help us change the hearts and minds of our neighbors. I know we can do this. I know we can do this because I know the best traditions of this country. I know it because that's been my journey. We are and have always been a beacon of hope for immigrant families like mine, a beacon that we can and then we will reignite together. I look forward to working with each of you in the days, in the months, and the years to come as we work together to build a fair and welcoming nation that we can all celebrate. I want to thank you for inviting me this afternoon, and importantly, I want to thank each of you for everything that you're doing to make our communities safer and better. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the Attorney General. Really appreciate your words. And I also want to thank his staff. I know the Attorney General referenced Rachel. Rahat's here too. Many of his staff members have been so incredibly accommodating, and we really, really thank them for their work on this issue. So thank you so much. Once we are now, I guess, done with the Attorney General's comments, if folks want to, he has to run to a meeting, but if folks would like to catch him before he runs. And then we're going to go ahead and, sorry. But he has to run to a meeting. But we can actually open lunch. So if folks would like, please go ahead and get some food. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. What the vegetarian?